Maverick News. The world is watching. In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
The next story I wanted to talk about, the big story of the week here, besides the January 6th anniversary, was the release, finally, of many of these Jeffrey Epstein documents. I've been poring through them, been reporting on them, and, we see President Trump, Bill Clinton, Michael Jackson, even Stephen Hawking. There are not too many surprises in there.
Stephen Hawking had the sexiest nurses.
Did he really?
Oh my God. Yeah, my friend went to do something with him and he sent me pictures, and the two nurses on either side of Hawkins were like total babes.
Really?
And they're kissing him on either side of the cheek. I mean, he loved that. Yeah. He was good.
Interesting.
I know. So I could see how he would be interested, in something that involved, I don't know whether he did anything wrong, because
how could he physically? I mean, just right. How? You know what I mean?
I don't
know. How does that work?
Know. That's a good question. That's a good question. Sure, there's always a way.
I guess there's a way where there's a will. And everybody's been asking me this week, of course, what about RFK Jr.? Are you finding anything about him in there? I have poured through 2,000 pages of these files so far, and I'm still not through. There's been like 6 different document dumps just in the last few days, so I'm slowly making my way through it, and everyone's like, well, did you find anything on RFK? Did you find any dirt? And I'm like, actually, no, I didn't. So far, it's all checking out just exactly like he said it would right here in this interview.
Is in the news today. Many names of associates of Jeffrey Epstein being made public, about to be made public. Back in November, you told Newsweek you'd been on Epstein's plane once in the early 90s. You told Fox News in December you're on his plane twice. Is there anything more that voters need to know about your connection with Jeffrey Epstein before any more information comes out?
No, I mean, I think I like what's happening today. I like the fact that all these papers are being released. I've been an advocate for transparency. I think the government keeps too many secrets. I think it's important for the American public to know whether Jeffrey Epstein had some kind of corrupt influence on public officials or any public figure. And those are the kind of, it's suspicious that the government has been unwilling to release those documents, and I think that every document associated with Jeffrey Epstein should be released.
So to be clear, you're not concerned about anything that could come out about you and Jeffrey Epstein?
My plane rides with Jeffrey Epstein, I took 2 plane rides with him. Once in 1993, when I went down to visit my mother in Palm Beach. Remember, nobody knew about anything about Jeffrey Epstein's nefarious activities till 2006. So he was a public figure and a big philanthropist in New York, and many, many people knew him. My wife knew his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, and they offered us a ride when we were going down to see my mother. I was with 2 children and my wife on the plane at that time. I knew nothing about Jeffrey Epstein, and then I think 1 or 2 years later, we took my kids fossil hunting on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, and those are, that was the extent of anything that I had to do with Jeffrey Epstein's airplane. Of course, I ran across Jeffrey Epstein at parties, at fundraisers, for the Robin Hood fundraiser in New York. But other than that, I had no relationship with him.
So nothing that could come out that you're concerned about in terms of the campaign or anything like that?
nothing at all. I hope everything that is known about Jeffrey Epstein comes out. I think it's odd that the Congress has not been able to subpoena him. I've been an advocate for making sure that the government is transparent about everything, including every document, everything that is known about Jeffrey Epstein.
Fair enough.
Don't you love it how Dan asked him like 3 times, are you sure? Are you sure there's nothing else that's going to come out? Here's a chance to get ahead of it, and he's like, nope, it's exactly what I told you.
Yeah, and that's what I love. He knows what he's done, and he said, I remember when he said, when he did his campaign announcement speech, he said something like, I told my wife that I have so many skeletons in the closet that if they could all vote, I'd be, king.
I'd be president. Yeah, I love that.
He's very honest about what he's done that was wrong. He's made videos about difficult times in his life and things that he did that were not good, and he's been very honest. And I think it's really refreshing.
Remarkably honest for a politician. Mm-hmm. I have never in my life, Karen, heard anyone running for president or really any public office speak so frankly and openly and in depth about their struggle with drug addiction, for example. I mean, Bobby has shared parts of his life that he's not obligated to share as a presidential candidate. And he's still in recovery, still goes to meetings a couple of times a week, and works hard at maintaining that. And I guess he talks about it because he's just trying to be honest, and maybe his words will help someone else out there who's struggling.
Yeah. And I love the thing that Bobby's saying about transparency, because one of the things that they say, I'm 38 years sober. So for me, I'll be 39 at the end of April. So close.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. But one of the things that they say in the text of the program that I go to is you are as sick as your secrets. And I think our government has too many secrets, and it has made our government sick. And I love that Bobby wants to have transparency and that he does not have any feeling of self-defense in terms of transparency, that he just wants the government to be in transparency. He wants the Epstein Files to be open and unredacted and freely visible. He wants for things like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, he wants their information to be shared. He wants things that the government is doing to be open and to be transparent. And I love that, because right now, if the news that I read is right, it says that the government has now used AT&T and T-Mobile to surveil you on your phone, and
surprise, surprise.
Right. And what I love is that he understands that we should not be surveilling Americans, but that Americans should be able to surveil the government, that the transparency should be in the government and the privacy should be in the people, in the citizenry.
That's right. That's what Julian Assange said. He said transparency for the state, privacy for the rest of us.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Privacy for the people.
Right. And that's what President Trump wants to kill Julian Assange for that. And President Trump and President Biden, neither one have pardoned him nor Edward Snowden. And I think they both should be pardoned.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it'll never happen. I mean, President Trump had every opportunity. President Trump had Julian Assange arrested in the first place. Right. That prosecution happened on Trump's watch. And a lot of people forget that back in 2011, Trump was on Fox and Friends, and he said that Julian Assange ought to get the death penalty. He is no fan of Julian Assange, even though during the whole 2016 campaign, he lied through his teeth and said, I love WikiLeaks. He loved WikiLeaks as long as it was helping him win the election, let's be honest. But after that, seize that man, have him arrested.
Wow.
So, that's just, it's one of the reasons why I can no longer support Donald Trump. I did support him in the 2016 election, but he just lied too many times. And he said he was going to drain the swamp, and he said he was going to release the JFK files, and he loved WikiLeaks, and that the vaccines were safe and effective, and I could go on and on and on. And we were going to build a wall, and Mexico was going to pay for it. So there's, I've always got that energy from him of someone who's not being honest. And the
Yeah.
difference with Kennedy, and I know this from my experience with him, and I know you do too, is that he's an honest man. You know, maybe too honest for his own good sometimes, like telling you his whole life story when he really doesn't need to share all of that, but he does anyway.
And, when I knew him the most, when I was around him the most, when we both lived in New York, he was so honest about things that weren't always to his benefit.
Right. He's honest to a fault.
And I remember thinking, I love this about this man. I love it
I do
so
too.
much because it's such a sign of integrity, and it's such a sign of wanting to be sane. If you don't have secrets, you are more sane. And I think there's something about privacy that's I totally appreciate privacy, but I think being open about things that you normally might think are secret or want to keep secret, and just being honest about them, it gives you a freedom. And I don't think
Right.
anybody else that is running has a freedom like that within themselves. And I'll tell you one other thing. Every time I've hiked with Bobby, back in the day and always, he picks up litter. I pick up litter. My mom inspired me when I was little. I used to do it all the time, but he picks up litter too. And I had forgotten about that, but it's such a sign of somebody. And I asked him once, I said, why do you pick up litter when you hike? And he said, because I think it's really important to do something really good for somebody every day, but not talk about it. And I said, oh, I love that. And so he picked up litter. He would pick up rattlesnakes and throw them, so they're far from other people that might be on the hike or dogs. He took a shovel and people who didn't
Just
clean up.
scooped him up.
He'd clean up the people that didn't pick up after their dogs. He'd just throw it into the canyon. And I was like, he was taking care of everything as he hiked consistently. I mean, I've seen that the whole time, and it's such a beautiful trait. And maybe I'm biased because I do it myself, but I just think it's a beautiful trait,
I do too. I saw a recent interview with him where he took a reporter for a hike with
Yeah.
him, right?
Yeah.
And during the interview, and it's on camera, and he's like, oh, excuse me, I've got to pick up this dog poop over here. Have you ever in your entire life seen a politician, someone running for president, to say in the middle of an interview, excuse me while I pick up the dog shit? I
Right.
mean, really?
He doesn't want some other hiker or some dog to walk in it or sniff it or whatever. So he puts it into the earth. He throws it over a canyon, or he throws it, far from the trail. And he does it consistently. I mean, he brings a freaking shovel on
Yeah.
his hikes for that.
And a bag. He was putting it
and
in
a
a bag,
Yeah, I bring a bag when I walk too, and when I hike.
That's what I call living an authentic life right there. If you don't care what is captured on the camera of a national television interview, and you're just being yourself. And there he was, not dressed up, just wearing, jeans and a t-shirt. And I love the little videos that he makes, of just, like going to the gym. He put out another one yesterday where he was, and sometimes he doesn't do so well. Okay. I mean, he's almost 70. Speaking of which, his birthday is coming up, and there's a big birthday party planned. I know you were kind enough to invite me. Tell me about what's happening on January 17th when Bobby turns 70.
Okay, on January 17th, I'm sure he's going to have a really fun day, probably with his family or something else. But there's a birthday party on January 22. It's going to be in Indian Wells, and it's a fundraiser birthday party, and it's going to be so fun. There's going to be so many fun people that are going to be there, and I'm going to be there. And it's thrown by two different PAC, and they just love Bobby, and it's just interesting. So, and when you go, if you decide to go, you could send me a message, or there's all these ways you can find out about it. But it's going to be really fun. It's a birthday present. It's going to be a birthday thing. Bobby has nothing to do with it. There's going to be a lot of people that are performing, and It's going to be beautiful.
Obviously not a surprise party because we've just told the whole world about it. But is Martin Sheen coming or not? I've heard varying reports on that.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I thought he was coming. I was told he was coming. And then he's 84 years old. And I think that somebody might have scared him about coming because I've heard other people. There are other actors who have said that they want to support Bobby, and then they talk to their agent, and their agent says don't.
Yep.
And it's just fear-based. It's just because the agent thinks that if they do that, they're not going to get what they want. But I have to say, I know another actor who he said, I'm not going to. He's working at Warner Brothers, and he's running a show. He's a writer and a showrunner of this show, and he said. During the pandemic, he said, I'm not going to require people to be vaccinated to be on my show. And Warner Brothers was like, what? And he said, I'm not going to do it. And they said, okay. And his show is a hit, and he just stuck with what is important. And I think that kind of integrity is something that I just love. I love it so much when people go with what they believe is right. It might not be right to me, but there's some integrity there. And to me, integrity means wholeness. It means my body, my subconscious, my conscious mind, my heart, my spirit, we're all working in tandem together. And that's what he felt. And he has tremendous support. There's billboards all over with his picture on it. His show is doing really well. And he stood up for what he wanted. And, I think other people might do that if they knew that they could have that kind of effect and that people would say, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Right. And those who did try to stand up there in Hollywood, which was so pro-vaccine, so pro-masking and lockdowns, the few that stood up did so like your friend, kind of quietly, because they didn't want to be ostracized, I guess, by their peers. And that's one of the things that I really admire about Bobby, the way that he stood up during the pandemic, knowing he was going to get raked over the coals, knowing that they would destroy him, and they tried to, and they censored him, and they called him a loon, a nut bar, every name in the book, and he didn't care. He stood up because it was the right thing to do.
Right. And that, to me, that is a level of integrity that I see in Bobby, and I've seen it the whole time I've known him, where he has this level of integrity that he's going to do what's right or what he believes is right, no matter what, and that to me is something that is really important to me. I mean, I've had experiences like where I've been offered a job to do, for $300,000 to do a billboard for Virginia Slim cigarettes. I told my agent, I can't do it. I didn't have any money at the time. I was in my 20s. I had no money. And he said, are you kidding me? You're not going to do this? Because he would have gotten $30,000.
Yeah, you can fake it. You don't have to actually smoke the cigarette. Just hold it and pretend you're smoking it.
I said, that's not the point. That's not the point. I don't see any benefit that a cigarette gives somebody. I can't see how it's a benefit to anybody except for Virginia Slims. So I can't do it. And he was like, you're a fucking nut. And I was like, I'm a nut, but I got integrity,
Yes, that's it. And that's what they say about Bobby. He's a nut, but he's got integrity. That's what some of his family members say about him anyway. But I'd like to give him the last word. I know we're running a little bit over time, but I'll just give 30 seconds to Bobby to make the closing argument.
I'm trying to find values that hold us together and we can share in common rather than to focus constantly on these disputes and these issues that drive us apart. So me sitting here bad-mouthing the left or bad-mouthing the right is not going to advance the ball. I really want to figure out ways that, what do these groups hold in common that we can all, have a shared vision of what we want this country to look like.
Exactly.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah, and when you focus on values versus opinions, but what do you really value? Most people have a lot of similar values. There might be some differences, but a lot of people have the same values. They want to be loved. They want to be safe. They want to be healthy. They want to be free, right? They want to be able to do what they want to do. There's a lot of values that people have that we all have. It's sort of part of who we are. So I love that he wants to do that.
And it's all about freedom and liberty. Bobby gets that. You know, the more we keep the government out of our lives, out of our business, out of our phones, out of our computers, out of our medical decisions, the less government I figure, the better. And in that sense, Bobby's very libertarian. I'm a longtime libertarian, and I think he's got a libertarian streak in him because he knows that that liberty is everything.
Yeah, although I will say I think, this is my opinion, we need regulatory agencies that will actually regulate the companies to protect people. Right now, we have regulatory agencies that regulate people and not the companies. But
well said.
If we had actual good governance with good regulatory agencies, it would be better, because I'd like to know what is GMO actually doing to our bodies? What is atrazine actually doing to our bodies? What is glyphosate actually doing to our bodies, right? I'd like to know what these products and to the pollinators and to the other creatures and to the microbiome in the soil. I want to know what those things are doing, and we don't have a regulatory system who's looking at it.
But we will. If we can get Bobby Kennedy elected, I guarantee you we will.
For sure. I totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, it has been my pleasure talking to you, Karen. I knew this was going to be a great conversation, a deep conversation, a meaningful talk, and it exceeded all my expectations. And we've been friends on Twitter for a while, but this is our first time actually meeting face to face. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time and your spirit with us tonight. It's been my pleasure. I hope we can have you back soon.
Thank you so much, Lori. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you. And Lori, you're a delight. You're just beautiful and wise, and it's just fun to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I always like to close the show by just saying thanks, everybody. And I wish you peace in the new year.
In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.